Welcome to We Are Women, Unapologetically, the podcast that talks about the good, bad, ugly, and awesome. Careers, life transitions, confidence, and everything in between. Because shift happens, but you don't have to do it alone.
Hello and welcome to We Are Women Unapologetically. My name is Jessica Cumming and I am your host. Today I am fortunate to be accompanied by Emily Carlson. Emily is the CEO of PBA Consulting, an award-winning healthcare IT strategist, international best-selling author, and the host of the global podcast Powered by Authenticity. With over 30 years of experience leading transformation in the healthcare technology space, Emily is delivering people-centered solutions that drive strategic growth and long-term impact. A lifelong resident of Western New York, Emily was named one of Consulting Magazine's top women leaders in technology and recognized as Mentor of the Year for her unwavering commitment to lifting others. Her work centers around empowering individuals to lead authentically, push boundaries, and define success on their own terms. Through her podcast, speaking engagements, and coaching, Emily champions equality, inclusion, and leadership that starts with purpose, not pretense. Whether she is mentoring emerging leaders or podcasting from her hometown of Batavia, she brings energy, empathy, and a relentless belief in what's possible when people lead with heart. Emily, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Jessica.
Tell me a little bit about how you went from your own technology experience into leading your own technology company today.
Yeah, so I've grown up in tech. It's kind of where I started, and that evolution came through having a son when I was very young and needing to find a job. And that job was at a local computer store where I could bring my son and he could be in his pack and play and I could assemble computers and kind of went up from there. I had always worked for other people, including giving my heart to some very large healthcare consulting firms. And then in 2022, as I was the sitting CTO and CISO for a healthcare consulting firm, I was part of a reduction in force. And at that time, I really had to make a decision. Do I continue to pour into others' cups, or do I take this opportunity to pivot my career, pivot to the direction I had been and give it a try of my own? And so I did take that leap. I'm still here, and it's been a fun ride, completely different, doing something for yourself, and again, always leading with heart, but do it for yourself versus doing that for others. So really, I just found myself at a crossroads and I had to make a decision. Do I go find another job and it's just that, or do I try to branch out on my own and do some things differently the way that I wanted to?
When you were in this transition period, and I know that I personally know what that's like, as well as a lot of women that listen to the podcast. But when you're caught at that crossroads, especially after a workforce reduction, how long did it take you to really make this transition?
Yeah, and that is one thing I will say is I did not think about it long enough, probably because the minute that happened, my first reaction was go find another job. I did go out on my own, but at the same time, I was trying to develop what that would look like. I was also out job searching. I hadn't fully committed to the fact that I should jump all in. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that position because you're so upset and you're grieving the loss of something that you really cared for in your work that you're kind of in this reaction mode. And for me, it was a solid few months. I kept interviewing and then somebody reached out and said, well, I have a position, but it has to be contract. You have to be out on your own. And that scared me. It scared my husband even more. And the fact that it may not be a constant revenue stream and income. So I would say before my head was all in it, along with my heart, it was a few months. I don't want anybody to feel they're alone in that. There's still times where I'm like, what am I doing? What is going on? And have those moments where you're sitting on the couch, you just got to cry because you're like so caught up and I've made this decision and a lot of people are counting on me. So a few months, but there's still moments where I have those little glimmers of doubt and say, would it just be easier to have a 9 to 5?
It's interesting because when you say it might just be easier to have a 9 to 5, yeah, I think it would be as one business owner to another. And I have a wonderful mentor of mine, And she owns a couple of different businesses because retail therapy was her thing during COVID. And she'll be the first to say that. As an entrepreneur, I can choose what 60 to 100 hours a week I want to work. A lot of times people think, oh, well, what are you doing? What do you have to show for it right now? Correct me if I'm wrong, but at least for me, that's when it's like, okay, am I doing the right thing? Because maybe not everyone's seeing it right now. Regardless if it is starting a new business, starting to work out for the first time, starting a garden. There's all this sweat equity that goes into these things before you can actually show for it.
Yep.
If anyone is out there looking at, I'm ready to make a move, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I want to start my own business. I don't know if I want to just look at changing companies. Would you have any advice for those people out there?
Yeah, a few different ideas come to mind for that. One is I have this friend, she's part of the WIT network, so it's Women in Tech Network here in the Buffalo area. And she started a red and a green book. The red book is what made her shoulders feel scrunchy, what did not bring her joy. And the green, what brought her joy, so that she could start to develop what her other opportunities may look like and what things she may want to do. I would say if you're in that position where you're just starting to think about, do I change companies? Do I start out on my own? Do I start a side hustle to turn it into something bigger? Start to jot down what it is that is bringing you joy throughout the days and the week and kind of go from there, because that's really going to be an indicator of where your heart is leading you to. And that's 3/4 of the battle, right? Is getting through your mind and getting your heart to align with everything that's happening. And the other thing I would say is if it's something completely different and you just feel like in some way that career is drawing to you, go find somebody on LinkedIn who's doing it. Go find somebody and ask them questions. And most people I find are so willing to give you 15, 30 minutes. Go ask them what they've done. Go ask them what their days look like. Go ask them about the challenges so that if that's the direction you feel like you're being pulled into, you have an idea of what that's going to look like. So I think the most important thing is finding out ultimately what does bring you joy. I mean, we are all in this to make money. There's no other way to survive, but there are ways to actually be very happy about the day that you're having. So if you're looking at changing positions within a company, go talk to the person who's doing it right now and ask what they like about it. If it's starting a side hustle, go find somebody who's doing it. Ask them about it. Making the leap, same thing. And then also just write down the things that do bring you joy throughout the course of your day. And I think when you align all these things up, you may come up with a roadmap that would help get you to the right answer as to what that next move may look like.
That's great advice. And it's something that I have talked about quite a bit. And I talk about with a lot of my clients is look at what drains your energy versus what gives you energy.
Yeah.
Because when you can really differentiate the two, you have a couple of ways of looking at it. You can either figure out a way in your current role to see if there is a way to do more of those things that currently bring you joy.
Yep.
If there's not a space in your current role, then as you were saying, look at finding someone that's in that current role. Ask for 15 minutes. It may cost you a cup of coffee, but in the long run, it could end up giving you so much more.
Yep.
One of the statistics that I read is that women that look at making the transition, they may even go into a different role that they weren't looking at, and they could not be making as much money right now, but in 3 years, they can actually look at making more than what they were before.
Yep.
Not only that, but the fulfillment part of it. Yes, we are all wanting to make money. It is how we survive. But there's something different about how you look at money when you're helping people.
Agree.
And once you get to the point of, you talk about coming from heart, and I talk about coming from service, and we both look at helping people show up authentically. I use the word unapologetically, right? It's the same. Once you come from that part and put the money aside, at least from starting a business or as a side hustle, money isn't the only thing that you get out of something like this.
Yep.
Once you decided, this is it, I am all in, there's no turning back. Can you walk me through a little bit about that journey?
Yeah. So, when you make that decision, there's no going back. who can help me grow this, who can help me spread my message. It was leveraging previous employees because they now work somewhere else. I jumped in because that's just who I am. I'm not very patient. I recently gave a talk and somebody asked me what my hard lesson was. And I was like, patience. Patience is hard. Sales cycles are long. You feel like you should be further along than where you are. For me, about 95% of the time, because it's just how my mind works. I want to go, go, go. So it was finding and tapping into a network. There was a lot of businessy stuff. It was the workers' compensation insurance, the liability insurance. And so I call that my paperwork stuff that I had to figure out what I had never been responsible for that before. And 95% of the customers that I work with, that's foundational work before they'll even sign paperwork with you, is making sure that you have certain checks in place. So it was learning a lot. It was finding people who I valued where they were in their role in life and went and talked to them. So there were some people who had also made the pivot to branching out on their own, hearing what had worked well for them, hearing their challenges, because it was the only way to be able to absorb quickly, learn from real life what others had gone through that were in that similar situation, talking to people in my network who could help me with ways that I could make revenue. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm still in that journey, because when I feel like I have something that is strong, the industry changes and I have to pivot. Being in tech, that changes constantly. And there was one day a few weeks ago where I was talking to somebody. I'm like, I'm not pivoting today. I'm full on dancing, because where I started at 8 o'clock this morning is not where I'm going to end up at 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, because we have to pivot very quickly based on something that was just announced to us. I have to adapt quickly. I'm still trying to figure it out, and that journey is still underway. And, it's funny, even with my podcast, where we started is not where we are today, because the growth and the opportunity and kind of the audience pivoted along for some different rides. And you have to be able to be adaptable and flexible. And I will learn patience. When you have to pivot so quickly, that's an indication of growth. It's an indication that you are listening and absorbing what you need to do to be successful as well.
Adaptability is one of the core things that people look at a lot of times when hiring. In the economy that we are in today, if you are not adaptable, if you are not continuously learning, if you are not continuously able to pivot, you're falling behind.
Yep.
I think that happens for a lot of high achieving women as they get to this point in their careers where they've learned everything, they have mastered their roles, and then it's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stay there. And they forget about that continuous learning. They are so busy in the rat race of everyday life and
Survival.
of their normal. Yes, exactly. It's survival at that point. And when you're in survival mode versus thriving mode, you forget about yourself. You forget those little things. And then all of a sudden, if you are forced to make a transition, there's a learning curve because you weren't continuously doing it.
Yep.
For women that are looking at, I know I need to make a move. I know that maybe I don't want to pivot today, but I want to get some of these skills. I know that you said you talked to a lot of people, but did you look at taking any courses, learning new programs, reading? What were some of the things that you did?
I did. I try to start each morning with at least a little bit of what's happening in tech, keep an eye on trends and continue to consume that. Moreover, I joined some different networking groups that gave me more access. There's a lot of organizations, Innovation Women, fantastic, with so many free webinars that once you're a member, you can absorb as much information as you want and help to train you up if that's the direction that you go in. I mentioned the WIT network. I had to realize I had to ask for help. I finally had to be brave enough to say, I'm not weak because I'm going to ask somebody for help. This is me showing a great strength in the fact that I need to find the people in my industry and also where I want to pivot to who are doing things well. Get coaching. There are so many coaches out there that I met with a lot of coaches before I found one that I said, I have synergy. And that is something that I would really, really strongly encourage people to do, is that just, go find the right person that you have the synergy, that they're going to listen to who you are and help coach you to that next level that you're trying to go to. And I think that's so important. I know there's so many amazing people who are doing amazing things that reach out and ask, this is where I want to go. How can we work together? So definitely coaching, seek mentors in the spaces that you want to go. Again, LinkedIn, even Google, this is what I want, what I'm trying to do. And people will pop up. And, 9 tenths out of 10 people are going to say yes. But I think one of the things that I had to get over as well was that there was probably going to be a cost associated with some of these things that I knew I needed to do. So part of that decision-making process was, this is the amount of spend that I'm going to be able to do. I need to prioritize it for me to be successful in this space. And, a lot of that for me was finding the right people to support my business. It was finding the right coaches. It was finding even the right software applications, right? ChatGPT, if you're not using it, it can be a godsend when it comes to pulling information, and I use it for my statement of work. Honestly, I run the parameters through, it helps me. And so it was investing in myself and investing in the ways that coaching, networking groups, and just everybody that I could become a sponge off of in order to be successful.
It's interesting that you mentioned ChatGPT, because before I started, ChatGPT for me was like one of those things where I didn't want to go there. It was too much for me, not from a cost perspective, but from a privacy perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, there's no way I'm going to look at using this tool. And then when you take a step back and you realize, because when we think of ChatGPT, you're thinking, okay, well, it's AI, and people are afraid of AI.
Yep.
But how many of us have an iPhone? How many of us have Siri?
Yep.
How many of us have Alexa? And as long as mine doesn't go off in the other room, I'm good. But, it's all of these different things, all of these different tools or AI applications or systems that we use, we don't even think about. But for whatever reason, ChatGPT has gotten the bad rap for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that there are a lot of other AI tools out there.
Sure.
I mean, Canva has a lot of AI. Perplexity is great for researching. And there's a couple of other ones that I have used along the way as well. That was something that I had to educate myself on. I have to tell people all the time, don't be afraid of it.
Yep.
The machine cannot do anything that you don't allow it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that by you get to decide what it learns about you.
Yep.
Now, once it's out there, it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So do be selective and cautious, but it really can help you try to figure out, like you said, statement of work. I was putting together some of my speaking engagements, it was all my words, right? And it just rearranged everything. So I think that that's one thing that people need to understand, is that it's there to help you, not hinder you, but you have to treat it as such, because yes, it is still a machine.
Yep. Yeah, I was the same way, honestly. During COVID, my team and I created a trademarked bot support. AI and machine learning and all that was not new to me, but there was something different about using ChatGPT in the way that I was thinking I probably should. I hired a coach, and one of the things he said to me is, "Why are you doing that? Do you know that you can do this with ChatGPT?" He ran me through how to use it to make myself more efficient, and I'm like, brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, since we are talking about coaching as well, I've seen some articles recently, and I know that people have even thought, oh, well, I don't need to hire a coach because ChatGPT can be my coach. And some of the answers, because I saw the transcript of one of the conversations, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we really need to understand what a coach is and what they do. And so if you're looking at using ChatGPT as a coach for $20 a month, I do not recommend it.
One of the values of coaching that you cannot get from ChatGPT is the relationship. I needed somebody at some point to say, you need to stop. Like you're in your own head, because you build that strong, tight relationship. That's why I've got a coach who I know I can lean on. So like I said, ChatGPT is a beautiful thing, but it cannot replace the value of the relationship. When you need a coach, you need that relationship to be there. You need to be able to pick up the phone and call. You need them to understand where you're trying to go, because that person has that knowledge to help support that growth. The value of the people aspect of coaching is just so invaluable that nothing could take the place of that. Hats off to you for coaching, because it is something that I wish people would understand the true value behind. And until you've had a really good experience, I can see why organizations maybe don't put the spend in it, but I'm all in. I think that organizations need to say there are coaches out there that can take younger women, younger men, and be able to guide them to the next level of leadership that can help them through situations, and make that a priority every year, is to get the right coaching programs intact.
Well, first of all, thank you, because it does take a lot of work and active listening. You have to be able
Yes.
to do that as a coach. I do have clients that their organizations do pay for their coaching every month. They see the benefit of it, and that's why they do it. And then you have individuals where they want to do it on their own because they can't get organizations to pay for it, and that's okay too. At any time you're looking at pivoting in your career, whether it be brand new to an organization, brand new to a role, looking at pivoting out of the industry, right? These are all major transitions. Honestly, part of the reason that I started the podcast, and that is the whole point of building this community behind the podcast and really just allowing women that open communication. When you decided that you were going to be 2 feet in and launch this, did you do it from a place of this is 100% what I want to do, or did you pivot at all after you made the decision?
Like, I started the company based on really IT consulting. I knew the market, I knew what people hadn't been doing well, and how I could differentiate myself, just having lived it for a large part of my life. So that's how I started. And at the same time, I'd run a podcast for the last consulting firm I was with. I said, that's it. I'm going to start my own. I started to realize I'm really good at the IT consulting part, and it does bring me joy. When somebody asked me what I do, I was like, I just help people. Like, truly, that's what I go in and do. I just help people get stuff done. More and more, I realize the joy every day that comes for me is when I get to talk to people, and I get to share my story, and I get to be on the podcast. So I started not even necessarily thinking about pivoting into more of that public speaking realm. And then I was like, I need to pivot. I need to divide my time to continue to find what lights me up. Tech will always be a part of who I am, and I love it, right? I could talk AI all day if you want to, and cybersecurity, but I also what really more and more, as I started to reflect on what was bringing me joy, it was the time in my podcast. It was the time speaking with others. It was the time that I get to come on shows like yours and share my story. And I was like, okay, I need to pivot my business. I need to pull it into two separate segments. And that's where I was really like, I need help. I didn't know that there's such a thing as a media kit and things like that. So I think being open to continuous self growth, self awareness, and just clarity as to what brings me joy is going to continuously make me pivot my company and myself to make sure that every day when I do get up, I'm not feeling like I was with some of those other consulting firms. I'm coming to the table, I'm approaching my technical work in a different way that I know my partners appreciate, but I'm also making sure I find the time to go do speaking events and focus on my podcast and evolve those things so that I continuously feel joy in every area across my life. And they're all my business, right? And how I'm growing, bringing in revenue. It's beginning to look a lot different than when I first started it back in August of 2022.
Looking at how you have pivoted and seeing how you have had this evolution in the last couple of years since you started the business, how do you look at splitting your time now between all of these different things that bring you joy?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a huge paper to-do list girl. I'll talk AI all you want, but I'm still going to whip out my notepad and write down my to-do list. I have to, yep.
Yep, right here.
Yep. I have to block my time. I have a certain level of commitment that I'm contractually awarded and afforded to be able to spend with my clients. I know how much time over the course of the day that's going to take. And I do know over the course of the week how much time I'm going to need to spend on podcast guests, finds podcasts, show notes, recording, all that good stuff. I have to time block because I have to make sure that I'm across the board giving 100% of whatever that block of time is to the person on the receiving end of it. So, I know for my clients what we have to do this week, and I do spend time either Friday afternoons or Sundays making sure that I understand what the blocks look like that week, understand where I have to spread my time. But again, I also have to get up every morning understanding that I'm giving 100% of each one of those blocks for the time that they're allowed. There's weeks where some things shift. There's weeks where clients are just higher priority. I'm traveling, I'm on site, I'm doing the things that you need to do. There's other weeks where I'm giving more interviews or we have more time blocked for edits or website work, but I have to just make sure. And I do make sure also, and I think this is something that gets forgotten, the very first thing on my to-do list across all of my pillars is the word workout. Because for me, if I'm not investing at least like an hour, hour and a half to myself every day, and I find joy through running and swimming and working out, I'm not going to perform well for everybody else. So my first word across all pillars is workout. When I write the top three things, that's always number one. So no matter how you're time blocking yourself, always make sure that you've got some time set aside for yourself to stay healthy and stay well. If you're like me, exercise just helps to bring it all together. Yep.
There's a lot of clarity that you can find, at least for me personally. I didn't start working out until probably my late 20s, early 30s. My mom passed away when I was 31. She had had a heart attack. So I knew from a personal physical health perspective, it was good for me, but then I would hate it, but I committed to it. And then all of a sudden it got easier. And then I realized that time was very precious to me. And yes, I was seeing the physical benefits, but also the emotional, the spiritual, the mental benefits that come with it. And taking that time, stepping away from everything that you're doing can bring so much clarity.
Yep.
I try to work out 4 to 5 times a week myself. And I try to do it in the middle of the day because I find out for me, I can do it in the morning and then I just work straight through the day. I'm horrible at taking breaks. I can put a chunk of time on the calendar and dedicate it to one specific area of my business, but then I'll just roll right into the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I have that block of workout time in the middle of the day, I know I typically have about 4 hours and then 4 or 5 hours, but that 1 hour for me is huge. Mm-hmm. So yes, I agree with you on the workouts. And I think that that's something that a lot of people are struggling with how to fit that in, especially now that we're seeing a lot of the return to office.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? It either means getting up earlier, but you're in the office, you have these meetings that you cannot move, and a lot of times they're back to back.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong when you have a break at work, getting up and walking around for 15 minutes.
Yep.
Even if you normally wear heels, bring your tennis shoes, walk around the office. Whether it's inside or outside. I know down in Texas right now, number one, it's been hot, but for the last almost week, we've had torrential downpours. Split it up. Even 5-10 minutes of standing, moving around, just doing something, the stillness, even though you're moving, the stillness of your brain can bring so much clarity.
I agree. Last fall, there was a very large time frame where, and I need to go back to this. You're bringing me a great reminder that what I would do is I'd take our puppies out for 20 minutes at most. It usually some semblance of a 20-minute time span during the course of lunchtime. Would be available, and there were just puppies because they were adorable, but just getting out, getting movement, getting a little fresh air, just getting away from the dinging and the distractions for just 20 minutes. In my old life, I would be sad if I had a 20-minute break without a meeting invite because why didn't I have a calendar full of meetings? Now I'm like, what success can we bring today by removing as many meetings as possible and taking the puppies out for a walk? I look at the world differently at this point in time. A lot of that does come from clarity. With you, I think 20, even just 15 minutes, if you can stand up and walk around and take a couple of deep breaths, so the second half of the day is probably going to go a little bit faster.
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit faster. It's almost like a reset
It
in the
is.
middle of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
And by having that reset, whatever you worked on that morning, it can be a continuation, or if you have it where it's a place to stop and then
Yep.
focus on your next thing. That way you're not bringing in what you worked on that morning.
Yep.
Everyone's different, so I'm very curious on this. When you do your time blocking, if you are in the middle of a task and you come to the end of your time block, do you feel okay stopping there, or do you continue on until it's done and then shift your time blocks?
So it depends on what I'm working on. But if I spend 5 more minutes on that task is going to be completely done and I don't have to look at it again, I'm going to spend 5 minutes and shift my next block. If it's something where it's going to take me more than just a few minutes to finish up, as if I need to go to a meeting. First of all, I do not like to be late whatsoever. Actually, like to say I break out into hives if I'm late for a meeting. But it's a respect thing for the person who I'm on the phone with. So if it's a matter of 5 minutes and it'll be done and I'm late for a meeting, that's not going to happen. But a lot of times it really depends. If I can just have this task completed, it means by shifting by a few minutes, I will. But I don't like to shift in anything more than a good 10 minutes or so. So it really depends on the task, what that next task is as well, and whether or not we can fully check off that item from the to-do list.
I went through a course and they said set a time block and be okay if you're not done to
Yep.
stop where you're at and pick it up another time. And for a long time, I couldn't do that. I was like, nope, this is the task. I can't move on to this task until I finish this task. And then I became okay with it and thought, okay, if I just continue to push out the rest of my day, I am not showing these other tasks the same amount of energy and respect that they deserve. Right.
Yep.
So I think that that's something that us as women, a lot of times, it's just we have to do everything. We have to do all the tasks. We have to get everything done. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but we have to get everything done.
Mm-hmm.
So to hear someone else say that they are okay with putting down a task and coming back to it, I like to hear that. And, same thing, right? Take a couple of notes, write it down,
Yep.
figure out, if you end a task early, you can come back to it or put it on the calendar for the next day.
Yep.
So you said you're a to-do list person. When it
Yeah.
comes to your to-do list, how do you break it up? Do you do a daily, weekly?
I try to
How do
do
you?
daily.
Okay.
Yeah. That being said, it depends on my schedule, actually. The other thing, and I heard this, I think it was Robert Herjavec, if you're a Shark Tank fan, or maybe it was Damon, it was one of the sharks. They said only list your top 3 for each of your to-do pillars for that day. It's going to lend you to a little bit more success. So like I said, I always start with workout, and that's my number one across all, because it just holistically makes me a better producer in person. There are a few things that typically fall across the week, and those are typically more in relation to the podcast, because typically there's the recording and then the show notes. So a lot of times that just gets bundled in like podcast production, and that does go across the course of the week. But otherwise, I do try to do day by day.
Very nice.
Yep.
When it comes to your story and your journey, what is one question that you're typically not asked that you wish more people would ask you about?
Part of that is why I chose the kickoff of my life that I did, or how that came to be. Most kids, when they were graduating high school, were thinking about which college they're going to or which career path that they're going to do in the next steps of their life. I found myself taking a different direction because of life. Everyone knows that I had my child younger, and he's part of my story as to how I got into tech. But those years when I left high school to when I went into the workforce, it taught me a lot about who I am, brought me closer to my family. I could realize what it was probably like to be a young mom from my mother. So I think that's probably one that I don't get asked a lot as to, was there something that happened that put me in that direction or not?
Yeah. Knowing that it put you in that direction, obviously you would not change that direction for the world. And you've built an amazing company and you've done amazing things since then. What is something that you wish that every woman would know when she's looking at making any sort of major transition in her life or faced with a major transition?
I think when you're faced with a major transition, you need to step back and find truly what brings you joy. And with that, know that your answers does not need to be defined what we see as typical definitions of what's going to bring you happiness. Doctors, great. Lawyers, great. But now the world has so many different opportunities of what you can be and become that, and I don't want them to be constrained by what typical standards are. I want you to focus on you and what brings you happiness, what brings you joy. And at the end of the evening, when you go to sleep, you can say your little words of gratitude because you were given a day again. You were able to do what you wanted to do to bring happiness, and you're living a life fulfilled with purpose and happy.
That's great. Is there anything else that you would like bring up or discuss with the audience?
I don't think so. I think it's fun to share journeys, and I want people to highlight their stories. Every person has a story. The more we share those, the more we can learn about each other and learn what opportunities and options are out there. I was voted quietest in my high school class, and now I have a global podcast. Some people that I went to school with are like, not you. Now I'm the gift of gab. You get me on a call, I'll just keep talking to you all day long. But that wasn't always the case. I want people to realize that life throws things at you. Don't let it bring you down. Take a step back, reflect, and reach out to me if you ever just want to chat because we all go through these moments. I really think back in August of 2022, I had just been on a 2-week family vacation and I gave up that whole vacation to work for them because they asked me to. The loveliness was that I came back and was let go. So go put your hinges in somebody else's door.
That's something that I think a lot of, not even just women, but high achievers need to hear, because oftentimes, especially if you have been let go from a company, you think about all those extra hours you put in, all of those dinners you missed, all of those vacations that you took your laptop and worked, all the times that you were checking your email at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, the times that you were waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning and going into the office early, not being able to see your children or not seeing your spouse because of the work that you were putting in. And I understand that there are some jobs specifically that those hours are going to be crazy for a while. But we have to have boundaries or timelines in place because ultimately it's not sustainable for your professional life. And quite honestly, it's not sustainable for your personal life. So just that reminder of taking the time, you are there for a paycheck for a certain amount of time. But once that time ends, be present, be still, be with your family, be with yourself, and just let it go, which can be hard, as we all know,
So
but
hard.
it's very important. Yeah, it is. Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining me today. I truly enjoyed learning more about you and your company. Like you said, we all go through these different pivots in our careers, whether you are happily employed, whether you're looking to pivot, whether you own your own business, whether you're looking for a side hustle. It happens to us all. It's normal, and you're not alone. So thank you so much for that message today. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next week, stay fierce, stay bold, but most importantly, stay unapologetically you.